Did you tell him?
No. He came in and he went right into Maraca Fox, and then I got lost in a vortex, and I think I was headed in a good direction, and he made a reference to a song which I thought he was alluding to more of the feel, but he was just talking about a harmony stab.
Because you stopped listening to me.
Yeah,
I told you. I was like, just this one word.
What are you talking
about? Poison.
What about it?
The song Poison. Well, he made a reference to it, so then I went in. I was thinking feel and drum beat.
And I just meant this one line on the word deadly.
Deadly. Yeah. So that like harmony stab.
I wanted like that. But he took the whole song.
I was like, oh wait. I was like, maybe he wants. Maybe he's hearing this because also the cadence of how you wrote it, like the melody vibe and the feel. I was like, oh, but no, it needs to go back to.
She's driving me out of my mind.
Such a good song.
It's a great song.
Yeah, we could save worship concert stuff for later. We're ready to
sure.
Go.
One move you did.
Poison. Which one of our songs is most Dylan-esque? Maybe that's a starting point.
A lot of versions of Dylan. I mean,
there's a lot of versions of Dylan. Yeah. Which one of our songs is most B-52s-ish?
Ellen, didn't Dylan write witty? Didn't he write like a lot of witty? Not witty, but like long stories. At least that's what I was. I don't really have a vast knowledge of his catalog, but
Make It Beautiful is the most like Johnny Cash, but
absolutely.
I just since that's there.
Yeah, for sure. Good point.
Yeah, getting Dan to sing 2 octaves below where he normally sings is, I think, what probably helped that.
Would you say Remember When is more Dylan-esque? Of the Dylans?
Yeah, because like the cadence of the getting a lot of words in.
Remember when the earth still dimly waited the night to end.
Oh man,
it could be really.
Yeah,
let's redo that one.
Yeah. Did you
remember when your love came in, my guilt went out?
Were you thinking of Dylan at all when you came up with that? Maybe the deep recesses, unconsciously.
No, no. No, it was probably more of what's the rate lift one?
Rate lift.
It may have been. I know one of them was like just like a rate lift feeling off that album. So late at night, the hardness of my head.
Oh yeah.
Funny how it times.
Yeah, it's a good song.
I don't know that was the one though. I can't remember which one it was, but there's so many albums though.
Starts with like the word tonight.
Tonight, you're one arm man. Grieving at home.
That was the one I think about with Remember When. Like
because it's in 6/8. Yeah, by the way.
Yeah, that'd be why.
Yeah, I feel like the first Shiloh record you turned me on to him.
Yeah, we were talking about Through the Night.
Nathaniel, yeah, and so I was like, wow. So hearing that record, it was very inspirational. And
yeah, we didn't drive the Scout home after that video, did we? We weren't in.
We
the
didn't.
Scout.
I don't think we drove the Scout at all. I think the Scout was on a trailer. We actually we towed it. We put it on we rented a full trailer, so it just drove up on the trailer.
That's right. That's right. But no, it was after us going away and writing Through the Night, fleshing it out. And I remember on the way home, you were like, yeah, so what's more of the vibe of this? Like, you know,
like the palette of the album.
Yeah. And then we listened to that album. It resonated with you quickly too, because you said that, you know, you had grown up with your dad's flavor of music and, you know, and so it kind of sit in a pocket for you where it was familiar. And then
It was
And then 2 days later we get.
Well, somebody was.
We get a
It was
little
almost like somebody had, because I don't
version of
listen. I was saying this to somebody earlier before we even started rolling. I didn't really listen to a lot of music growing up. When I started producing music, it was more listening to music for an educational purpose, almost like when you share Rate Leaf with me, I listen to what they're doing and how they're producing. You know, so it's like it starts sparking inspiration. It's almost like listening to somebody say something and going, I love how they said that. Mm-hmm. I want to adopt that saying and I want to make it my own, and I want to maybe change a few words and say it the way I would say it, but I love how they said that. You know, so that's kind of what listening to music has always been for me. But yeah,
I think a fun, maybe a fun song to talk about would be "Calm, Cool, Collected," and how we landed where we landed with that particular tune.
Yeah, where did it begin? Do you remember where it began? As far as like,
well, so backstory quickly on. So the song is about a character in the novel Shiloh Battles named Jerome. And he's calm, cool, and collected, but he's basically, giving up on all his dreams and, is just going through the motions and trying to make sure everybody else is calm, cool, collected, and that there's no drama or anything. Mm-hmm. And so we had the lyrics written, and we were working on like a real, almost like gospel vibe, like with a gospel choir kind of sound and everything. And I hated the song. So I just didn't, it wasn't him.
It was unsettled. I remember we went to bed and it was unsettling.
Yeah, it wasn't Jerome. Like musically it sounded good and everything, but it wasn't capturing Jerome. And while I was laying in bed before I went to sleep, I thought about LL Cool J, "I'm the Type of Guy" was the song. And so when I got up the next morning, I still remembered that that's what I was thinking about, and went in the kitchen, and Lucas was up early making breakfast, and I was like, hey, I like this sound. And I'm thinking more this vibe for Calm, Cool, Collected. And then I got in the shower, and when I got out of the shower, the whole house was shaking
because he'd already
with a beat that he had.
He'd already gotten started. I woke up and was like late, and I was like, oh, what?
Well, we were away recording, right? So we were in this modestly sized home. It was very nice. A small bedroom. We had all of our equipment sort of packed in this one bedroom where I was sleeping. We all had our own bedroom.
Near the beach in Maine.
And so it was on the second floor. And so my bedroom was sort of also the studio. And this was the last song. So in the first Shiloh Battles album, Shiloh Battles by Shiloh Battles, we had 8 songs.
8 songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we had been working for a few days and recorded a bunch of stuff, and the album sort of took shape and had this sound nod back to maybe the Rat Leaf type of, am I saying that right? Rate Leaf? Rat Leaf?
Rate Leaf.
I just call him Nathaniel.
I like that. Okay, Nathaniel. A nod to Nathaniel. And I remember the Jerome, in trying to keep it in that same kind of genre of feel. I had this whole organ riff, this B3 thing we were doing, and it was there, but like you said, it wasn't really sitting, maybe where you wanted it to. But I also remember you saying, there was another song, ding, ding, dong.
Oh,
ding,
yeah.
Ding,
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
And you just said that, and then I think you went to go take a shower, and then I just went upstairs, and it just, boom, it just like hit me. And
he went R&B world.
Yeah, I went back to the old R&B and hip hop roots, and I was just like, I'm gonna do what I feel. I'm not gonna think about it, and I don't even know if Bo's gonna like this or what the feel's gonna. And you were like, that's it. It's like more of that.
Yeah.
And then Dan get in there and laid some vocals. And
I'm like, wow, I'm getting this Regulators.
And that was the day that was even like
Regulators mount up. So yeah.
It was the day we were leaving too, so it was almost like in the 5-yard line.
Yeah, yeah. Because when we started working on it the night before, it was like, okay, what songs were remaining, what characters were remaining, right? Mm-hmm. That we needed to work with, and it was Jerome, and so
we're talking about this book, by the way,
Shiloh Battles by Shiloh Battles.
Yep, available on Amazon. Audiobook as well. Check it out.
Great read.
Yeah, it's a novel.
Album. Yeah.
Novel, and it's got 8-song soundtrack, so
Yeah, it was fun for me because at that point in like our creative, interactions, I was writing lyrics and but not able to like say much musically, or contribute much. And you guys were kind of filling that out together and figuring that out. And I was more of a fly on the wall, watching and learning and listening and seeing if I heard something I liked or didn't like. But I didn't feel like I could say much and have vocabulary for a lot of it. And so it was fun for me on this particular song to go like, let's just go to bed. Let's go to sleep and sleep on it and do it tomorrow. And then having those thoughts. And it was really like, there were 3 tunes. There was the 3 we mentioned that were in my head and we were pointing to. And when I heard the beat that that while I was in the shower, that's all I could hear was the bass. And I was like, that's it. I couldn't wait to get upstairs. And, and then when Dan came in, it was totally different, like, to sing, going from the other vibe that we had. We did not change a single lyric.
No.
Mm-hmm. So we went from, like what you were saying, like very organ driven and
similar to like a Through the Night,
Yeah, different kind of sound completely to this other thing, and didn't change a single lyric, but I could hear it before you ever did it. So I was like, it works. I was so afraid you were going to be like, I don't think this works, because I didn't know how well we would, mesh or creatively, on that. But I was like, it works. I swear it works. I can hear it in my head.
Yeah. It was so different genre wise, so that's probably where you get, I think, because we're always taught to color in the lines, we're always taught to stay in a certain, don't go past that point, stay in the lines, so when we start coloring outside the lines, it's like, are we okay? It's like, yeah, you're okay. Like,
yeah, you're okay.
Just make it beautiful.
And here's what Calm Cool Collective sounds like over that little beat.
Ended up being, when we did the concert at the Rex Theater, it ended up being probably the only song of the night that actively engaged an entire audience.
Well, like physically, like we had them get up, and they were up, and we were just, then we started dancing, and we were like, yeah, let's just.
It was a groove.
Yeah, it was a groove.
Yep.
It was a groove.
Yeah. And most songs in that genre, in my experience, they bode well in a live setting, because when you have a full band, you can kind of do a little bit of tweaking to it and give it a little bit more soul, a little bit more feel, or whatever. You can elaborate on whatever's there, and people love an airworm. Yeah, I think, and maybe this, it's not. So I'm more hesitant to infuse like R&B or hip hop or some of those textures in there, because it's sort of how I cut my teeth in music. At a young age, it was a lot of that kind of music, and so not wanting to do the thing that I've always done or naturally done, but I've come to learn and I've come to discover through this process, like both of you also have like a deep roots sort of in that musical genre, and honestly know probably more artists and can name more songs than I even can. And so it was like, oh, this is not taboo. This is good. This is something we can lean into on the records. And I think we have, and all the records that we've done so far, which is now 3, but.
Yeah, a lot of musical influences between the 3 of us.
Yeah.
Which is good. And a lot of times, I would even say most of the time, it's like we're working, creativity is stirring and coming out, and then into that, as things come out and we're expressing it, melodies and things like that, music, we start to, for me, it's like, oh, I'm getting, what I'm hearing us do is this vibe, and it's never a quest to replicate, but it's like, oh, what's good of that actually does communicate what we're trying to do or how we're trying to express it, and I really appreciate that catalog of music and appreciation for all kinds of music, and it fit really well with the book, given that there's different characters and all these characters are very different, and we're pulling different things out. And so that's really fun. And in this case, it was that trip down R&B lane and LL Cool J, like you said, and It was cool. Yeah, I remember waking up and walking in and be like, "Oh,
this is where we're going.
Okay, this is
calm,
bad.
cool, collected."
Yeah.
So, but even coming out of that record into Reluctant Saint, Prayers of a Reluctant Saint. What song or songs jump out to you guys as far as like that would be sort of the Jerome-esque, where we kind of
thought of it that way. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, because that's what I think.
Oh, sure. Well, there's three.
Well, there's
There's three. Cop to Cop Car, Bull Shop, which is gonna go a little more on the Beastie Boys side of that. The little
New York hip
hop, a
hop,
little guitar rock riff over it, but and Back Pocket Maracas.
I was gonna say, like, as far as like vibiness, Just a Dream.
Yeah, that does that too. Yeah,
Just a Dream does have a little bit of that, but also a little Sublime.
Yeah, but as far as like drawing outside the lines and outside the box and stuff, I think those songs, in the Reluctant album,
from a genre
album, represent that well. Just a Dream was an interesting one where we took a lot of time with that one too. And that you started with something and then it was like, okay, but how does it get a little punchier and vibier and
like it was almost, I confused myself, I think, when I was kind of coming up with it. Sometimes I'm going in a direction, but then the music takes me in a different direction. I think like, oh, maybe this should be a little reggae feel and then it just started going into a different direction, and
that's when I was like, okay, but maybe it's more like Sublime kind of. Right?
Yeah.
But again, just as like quick references as to like a Sublime vibe, but it was still very vibey. It wasn't anything like Sublime, but
and I think because you had this was there was an original version of this. I don't know that I heard it, right? But you had something
of Just a Dream.
Just a Dream, yeah.
Well, Just a Dream.
Let's talk about Just a Dream.
Did that come from something that?
Yeah, the origin on it is you had written a song, very 2000-esque.
Oh, a long time ago,
almost kind of
that I was just sharing with you.
That we liked, like you and me liked, but you weren't really sold on the lyrics that you had for it. And I was like, well, send me a copy of the lyrics and I'll take a stab at rewriting the lyrics.
That's right.
And Just a Dream was my stab at rewriting those lyrics to the tune that you had. Lucas didn't know that we had that conversation. And so he gets the lyrics, sees the lyrics, and goes in a totally different direction, which I really loved.
Yeah, and I went quiet for like 24 hours. Like, okay, I'm not sure. Like,
you're like, what happened to my song?
This is cool, but like, I don't know. What is that?
Yeah, you let it, which is great. Like, I mean,
let it marinate.
Yeah, collaborative creativity. What we're doing right now is we're diving into what that looks like in high degrees of trust, openness, very open-handed, clear communication, waiting, would be a big part of that, and experimentation. I mean, all those things, seeing where something goes as opposed to shutting it down, are, I think, part of what has made this so much fun for us and caused us to love what we're making, which is really when art gets fun. If you love what you make, then art's fun. And so whether it be providential or luck, I don't know like exactly where that goes into, but in making the first album of a soundtrack to a novel based on characters that was going to dabble into this pretty wide palette of music, opened up Pandora's box a bit for us to go, oh, everything's
on the table. When do you this is a question I have in my mind, because you said a little while ago you were talking, and when you said this, I started to immediately fast track the musical journey that we've been on, and there was a turning point for you language-wise, where I think in the first record, when you were sort of in the bedroom, we were all in this little bedroom studio, you were in the corner and you had the laptop and you were working on lyrics and just observing, and we were all trying to just figure out what, how this gels. what's the catalyst? Like, what was the turning point for you where you felt like you had language? Because the language is not something that even musical language is unique to whoever might be communicating. I mean, I'm sure there's some non-negotiable words. There's things that we can say to each other on like a musical level, playing instruments and things like that. But then there's also descriptive words or language that I think everybody starts to understand. You know, what do you think? How do you think that happened, and when did you kind of see that happening?
Well, some of it is, I mean, there's a number of factors, but one thing before I get into that would be we've probably developed a little bit of twin speak. You know, like when you have twins, they have like their own language.
A little telepathy.
There's probably a Shiloh Battles language that if I said some of the things that I say to you guys that, you know, that you understand might not make sense in any other dynamic. And that comes through time and listening. But since I don't have any like natural proclivity towards playing an instrument or understanding melody or, you know, how these things necessarily work, or the language around that. You guys both Dan and you, Lucas, are both amazing teachers. And so sometimes I'll listen, and you guys are both willing to teach me anything and teach other people. And so I listen and also listen to you teach each other things. And so I pick up bits and pieces. I don't, like, even when you're teaching each other something, like it's not anything I can do, but I'm like, I can pick up what you're doing and then go, oh, okay, here's a new way for me to maybe be able to speak into this or talk around that. And then also we say things the wrong way or not wrong way, but like in a way that's not clear. And it sidetracks us.
We just keep going until we figure it out.
Well, and then we go, oh, that's not what I meant. What I meant was this. And, you know, so you're redefining. I mean, that's the cool thing about language. So words and language is my instrument, my primary instrument. It's not I don't want to limit myself and say that there's nothing else, but that would be my primary instrument. So that's the one that I probably spend the most time on. And so I'm always, but not just like a lyric, I'm paying attention to what you're saying and how you're saying it. And when you understand something, I mean, it's also, I'm probably talking too much, but it's also where when you guys, sometimes I can actually translate for the two of you when you're not quite connecting, and I'm like, I think he's saying this and he's saying this, let's try this. Because there have been a number of times where there was like,
or you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, you're both saying the same thing. So Lucas loves to fight when we're in total agreement.
I never want to fight out of disagreement. I want to fight on what we agree on.
Yeah. Lucas, we agreed 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, but we didn't fight about it yet.
Just proving the point louder and louder.
But that's been fun.
I want to make you love your point.
There were some times where like both of you are saying, you know, you were saying different things, and I was like, all right, you're saying this. Can we? And then I have a way to say there's a way to possibly combine this.
Yeah, that's a strength. Yeah. That's a strength.
And we've done some of that, and some of it were like we tried it and we're like no, and then we figured we want to go this way or that way. But there's been a few times where we tried it and it was like, ooh, there's some real magic there.
Yeah, there is something very, maybe even spiritual about three. You know, having three people involved in the sense, you know, like even just from if you want to talk Shark Tank, you know, it's like
the odd number of
it's like who's the tiebreaker. You know, if you have two people founding a company, somebody's less likely to invest unless they have an ownership stake in the company, so they can be a tiebreaker, so the company doesn't go into a stalemate. But you know, having that voice of reason, which I think, Bo, you end up being that probably more often than either one of us.
Oh, dear Lord, we're in trouble if I'm the voice of reason.
Well, not the hold on. Let me rephrase that. The tiebreaker, maybe, you know, because we'll be like talking.
Sometimes you're the voice with no reason. No, sure.
Yeah, sometimes you're just a voice for no reason.
Yeah, for no reason, yeah. No.
But yeah, being able to say,
for sure. Yeah.
Well, because permission is important too. You know, like, is it okay to do this? Like, is this the right sound? Or Dan will come with something, you know, you've come with ideas that are awesome, you know, and you'll just be like, you know, it's just permission. It's just like, yes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like we have
validation.
Validation, yeah. But also permission to keep going. and to like, be confident in that.
Yeah.
I love that because I know that I'm doing something good. I know most of what I do is going to be acceptable to somebody.
Yeah.
But it's like, do I have permission to go down that road and keep doing it? Is this what we want to do? You know what I mean?
With Just a Dream, I remember hearing the I think we started with Just a Dream as a voice memo that you shared, and then we saved it and took it on the trip with us to work on. And maybe you did a little bit there, I don't recall, but I remember being like, how do I communicate what would at a minimum sound good to my ear about this? Mm-hmm. Is it necessary to go down that road? Is it fun? Is it good where it is? What are we doing with the song?
There's a lot of backstory because you had it. I didn't know that.
And then it's like, okay, then the like to your point, Bo, the trust and the camaraderie to be like, okay, well, I can express what I'm thinking, and whether or not that works or not is fine, but I'd rather express it in a trusted environment than keep it inside and then have the tension of like, no, this is not it, and I can't express. That's just anxiety at that point. That's what it's a little anxious or a little tensious, and it's like, okay, no, we could share that. We can explore this. We've got the time to do this. Let's play with that. And yeah, I enjoy Just a Dream because of that, and putting those pieces together and getting that vibe together, and then singing it together, and because that took shape in a really cool way too.
Do you feel like you have more trust? Do you feel like, because I feel like we all came into this from different perspectives, but do you feel like you experienced a safe environment to give the feedback that you wanted to give?
Oh yeah, all along the way, in many different shapes and forms. So like Just a Dream, that is exactly why I brought it up. Because that was a place where it was like, yeah, but no, so what if? Yeah. But as far as like to your point of what's permissible and just what are we permit of each other to explore, and for me, I remember sending Kings Till They Die, and it was like, do we want to go down this road? And then for you, I don't know if this would be the song that you chose, and we don't have to go off onto this song. I know what we're talking about here, but I felt like Gone was different than anything we had heard once we had heard Gone. Like when Gone was a file that you shared and and worked on and sent it, it was already very different than anything we had done, and it was like, wow.
Well, we could go an hour on that song for me.
But
that might be another episode.
But I think from my experience, I guess I would say, was giving permission as much as receiving it in a moment like Kings Till They Die from you guys. Like I received that, I felt that permission. And like,
Kings, I had never heard anything like Kings.
I was given it as well as a contributor when something like Gone came out, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. No, and I said this to you recently, but you're a genius when it comes to songwriting. And I say that because, I've worked with a lot of songwriters and I've written a lot of songs, but when you actually take something and lean into it, like in whatever way that you do, you come up with something it's like an amalgamation of probably everything that you've ever consumed. And it's, and there's like when I first heard Kings, I was like, who sings this low in verse 1? Like fat cats with, I was like, this works. Like this is like there was something connected with me, like on a musical level. I was just like, wow. And then I started like hearing this whole like structure and this whole thing around it, but it's good when you do that. Yeah.
And then when we experience the permission amongst the three of us, it's like fuel,
Yeah. Which was hard for me to do. I don't know about you guys. Early on for me, like music had a lot of ego involved with it. maybe it was being young, maybe it was just the climate of the culture we were in, years ago. But it was like, if your thought or your idea on a song wasn't validated or accepted, it was like an attack on who you personally were.
Yeah,
that was sort of the music industry,
Yeah, or ego being like, I have to write it all, start to finish, lyric, melody, music, arrangement, blah, blah, blah.
Leave me alone. Let me do this.
No. And so I think a great amount of permission came from, like, here are lyrics that are really, really good. And it's like, I have permission to not have to worry about and be able to work on something that's someone else's strength, and then just like put into that the music that and the ideas around that.
Savory.
Yeah, so ego is usually, well, I think universally, insecurity. And so we all carry a lot of insecurities. I certainly do. And so when ego gets involved in a negative way, usually it's an expression of insecurity. And so you said you're not sure if it's spiritual. And it is. All of it is. Everything is spiritual. So we're kind of working in that environment. But then the power of three is a super spiritual thing. I mean, there's one God expressed in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There are three dimensions that we're working in. I mean, you can have very flat creativity, or if you want depth in your creativity, then it would have those three dimensions. There's three dimensions to a person: mind, body, soul. And a strand of three chords is not easily broken. And so when we talk about trust in this conversation that we're having around creativity and collaborative creativity, would be, it's not that I trust you, Lucas, or that I trust you, Dan, or that you guys trust me. It's that we trust us. And that's where trust, like, really, I think, explodes into a lot of fun creativity that we enjoy. And we can't control how somebody else's experience with what we create, but we get to create what we enjoy, and it brings life and makes our world beautiful. And I think that's that power, and that's a very spiritual thing. Like, we are created to create, made in the image of God. And the first thing we learn about God is He is creative. And then the first command God gives us is to create. You go and make babies.
Be fruitful.
Be fruitful and multiply. And to create and to share in His creativity. And so to get to do that in community is a wonderful, wonderful gift, and a very, very spiritual thing, and a very God-honoring thing, very worshipful thing. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful.